I've been suddenly feeling really nostalgic, and it might be for the most oddly specific thing in the world. Bob the Builder, Can We Fix It? On PlayStation 1. This is gonna be a bit of a weird video today, so stay tuned. Hit it! Now you might be asking, Project, why are we about to discuss a kid's game? Well, for very simple reasons. It sparked a lot of good memories of my first ever game collection as a kid and figured, hey, why not reminisce on every other game that helped start my gaming journey? Plus was $5 at Just Press Play, and the reactions my friends had when I told them this was one of the first games I ever played were absolutely priceless. Since they know me primarily as the incredibly devoted Sonic fan you see before you, seeing me geek out about a Bob the Builder game on PlayStation was certainly a culture shock. But I'm sure just about every gamer has had a couple of rather weird or unique games that only a few others may know about when starting out. Unless, I guess, you were super lucky and grew up with all AAA titles, which I find a bit hard to believe. Especially since as a kid, I also grew up watching cartoons and animated movies to pass the time, which inevitably resulted in having quite the collection of video games based on those same cartoons and movies, most of which I picked out by choice. Now this isn't going to be an extensive revisit of these games to see if they still hold up to this day or anything. I'm just going through each one, talking about some fond memories I had with the game, and moving on to the next. With the exception maybe being Bob the Builder, oddly enough, because it was the game I remember the least about as far as actual gameplay and genre compared to the others. So, let's get started. Since I'm sure the curiosity of the Bob the Builder game is at its highest, I'll discuss that game first to get it out of the way. In short, it's a minigame collection with some decent puzzles for kids. The graphics do a good job to replicate the show's claymation style, and the tasks you perform also feels in tune with the series itself. For example, one of the minigames involves helping Bob repair the heating in someone's house by matching the correct color-coded pipe with the correct room. Not only that, but the correct shape to fit in the right spot as well. And I'm fully aware it's just a simple matching game, but it's not insultingly easy, especially to the young audience it was obviously marketed towards. Plus there's even a difficulty setting from easy, medium, or hard. It ultimately doesn't affect me as an adult playing this out of curiosity gameplay wise, but for a kid, I think it provides a decent and appropriate level of challenge for them. Don't worry, you won't be pulling your hair out, popping your air bubbles as Rolly anytime soon. But so long as you accept the best method of popping them is to go for the ones you can get in quick succession, you'll be fine. Wait, why am I giving strategy advice for a Bob the Builder game? Well anyway, I also remember getting a lot of mileage out of the minigame where you decorate a cake for Wendy. But going back to it now, I'm a little shocked the lack of music didn't bother me. Maybe because it does kind of help with concentration, but when just about every other minigame had some kind of music, the silence in this one was much more noticeable upon review. Overall, this game is a fun little distraction and a perfectly harmless kids game from a perfectly harmless animated series. Next on the list is, once again, based on a cartoon series that I'm sure everyone knows about, and considering I see this game branded with the neon green greatest hits spine a lot, I'm sure some of you might be familiar with this game. Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase on PlayStation 1. If it wasn't obvious enough, I grew up with primarily PlayStation consoles as a kid, and the only times I got to try out other consoles, it would be either at my cousin's house or if they brought over their consoles like the GameCube for example. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's get back to the game. This was possibly one of the games I played the absolute most as a kid. To describe the gameplay feel, it's like Crash Bandicoot as in the 3D platformer with linear hallway level design. But instead of controlling a tornado spinning Bandicoot, you control either Shaggy or Scooby through various levels inspired by different time periods. It's also based on the TV special of the same name, which was... it was okay. Not my absolute favorite, but not the worst either. The game, however, I remember enjoying far more by comparison. Even if at the time my brother and I couldn't save any of our progress due to not having a memory card for the original system, and though the PS2 could play the game, it couldn't save it. Long story short, most of our playthroughs would be just trying to see how far each of us could get without having to quit and restart later. Good times. We even made it all the way to the final boss one time, only to immediately die without a chance to recognize the attack patterns. If I ever find it again, I'm going to make it a personal mission to beat that game once and for all. But my self-proclaimed side quest to find a game from a TV special that's almost to say ages me aside, good grief. These next few games, I'm just going to speedrun explain them, because the more I think about my old collection, the more I realize just how many licensed titles I own. All published by THQ, funny enough. Maybe that's why I was so familiar with that logo as a kid. I kept seeing it everywhere. SpongeBob SquarePants Super Sponge, and Dexter's Laboratory Mandork's Lab. One is a side-scrolling sprite-based platformer, and the other is essentially a 3D scavenger hunt / minigame collection. The SpongeBob game I remember having plenty of fun with, and I believe was one of the first games I was actually able to beat. An incredible feat, I'm aware, though if I ever plan to actually play this game, I'm going to have to prep myself for the rather loud and over-the-top sound design. Nostalgic, yes, but very, very loud. Now, the memories I have with Mandork's Lab is kinda limited considering I never got very far in that game, but the rhythm game mission is borderline engraved into my head. It brings me right back to my childhood. It's silly, and maybe even corny to some, but I loved it nonetheless. I remember when I was little, my mom would recreate Dee Dee's losing animations, which would always make me laugh. Now this last game I'm about to mention might be one of the most niche games I've ever played, but I know for a fact that this series, along with several games from this company, also have their fair share of fans, some of which I know personally. But bear with me because the title of this is even more of a mouthful than the SpongeBob game was. Pajama Sam 3, You Are What You Eat From Your Head to Your Feet. My first ever point-and-click adventure game on a console. Developed by Humongous Entertainment. What happened to Pajama Sam 1 and 2? Never played nor had them as a kid. Just jumped straight to 3 apparently. Anyway, out of the games that I owned as a kid and that I'd like to reclaim at some point, this game is funnily enough usually the one I think about often. Maybe because at the time it was one of the more unique games compared to the multiple platformers I had in my collection. Plus the art style and characters had a special kind of charm that really stuck with me, as well as being reminiscent of my homeschool days of Schoolhouse Rock. Another reason I remember this game so much, and I'm really hoping I'm not alone on this, but this was the game that introduced me to horseradish.
What?
Granted, I was like 4 or 5 at the time playing this. My knowledge of condiments was went as far as ketchup, mustard, mayo, and relish. So when I see horseradish in Pajama Sam's fridge, I couldn't help but be curious. Then about 2 years later, I tried it out for the first time. It's disgusting. So thanks for that, Pajama Sam. Also, do me a favor and make yourself more available at retro game stores. I never got a chance to complete it since I wasn't very good at puzzles growing up. Please and thank you. And there you have it. Not all the gaming star anybody would have expected to know before, huh? Now, some of you may be thinking, Project, did you grow up with any AAA titles at the time? Well, yeah, I had Crash Bandicoot 2 back in the day, but I felt it more necessary to talk about the lesser known games or less talked about entries in my collection. Not because I want to feel special or whatever, but to be a reminder of where my gaming journey started truly, as opposed to only mentioning the big names. Plus, in my case, I didn't really play a lot of games that defined and shaped me until like the PS2 era, and played basically the big 3 of PlayStation. And Sonic, of course, but I was already watching their OVA over and over, so we were already locked in there. I will say though, it was nice to reflect on the simpler days for a change, and while I'm still in the process of rebuilding / adding to my retro collection, I hope to find and play these games again soon. Lord's will, of course. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content. It really means a lot. Also follow my other social medias in the description below. This has been Project EpicnessX, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please love and dove, and have a blessed day.